I've always been invisible. In our family, where the light fell on those who shouted louder, sparkled brighter, or lied better, I was like a shadow, inconspicuous, comfortable, always in the background. My name is Trevor, and I'm not someone who likes to put on a show. My cousin Zach is the exact opposite. He was the king of fake victories. Loud, with a smile that dazzled like cheap neon, and eyes as empty as his promises. Since childhood, he had not achieved anything. He pretended that he had achieved it. I built my life in silence. An old laptop, cold coffee, sleepless nights, missed parties. I wasn't looking for applause, but when I decided to show the world my work, Zach stole it. And I realized that silence is not my ally, but a cage that needs to be broken. It all started with a single Instagram post. I've been hesitating for a long time whether to publish it. I'm not one to brag, but this contract was my first real breakthrough. Not just freelance, but a major project that I dug out of the world with my own hands. I took a photo, my battered laptop, a screen with a signed contract, nothing superfluous. The text was honest, long-suffering. Hundreds of rejections, thousands of lines of code, nights without sleep. And here it is, my first contract. Thanks to those who believed in me. Every word was like a scar that I carried inside. When I clicked publish, I felt my heart beating in my throat, as if I were standing on the edge of a cliff. The post garnered a couple hundred likes. Friends wrote, "Trevor, you're doing great," Mom called, her voice trembling with pride. "I always knew you would do this." I was happy, not because of the likes, but because for the first time I showed the world that I'm not just a laptop guy. Friends, how do you like Trevor's first move? Is it worth sharing your success on social media if you've always been in the shadows? Or is it better to keep everything to yourself? Write in the comments, would you risk posting such a post? Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. 2 days later, I opened Instagram and felt the blood drain from my face. Zach had my post, my photo, my laptop, my contract. Only the text was different, filled with hashtags like #SuccessInspires, #DreamsComeTrue, and the caption, "When you know that the stars are on your side, anything is possible. This is my moment." I sat staring at the screen, feeling rage and disbelief warring inside. Zach has collected more than 1,000 likes. Our mutual friends, those with whom we played football at school, with whom we drank beer in the backyard, congratulated him. "Zach, you are a machine. This is a level." I flipped through the comments and everyone was like a knife stabbing into my chest. But the worst part was a message from Aunt Karen, his mom. "Trevor, look at how Zach is achieving his goals. And you're still sitting in your corner with your laptop." I gripped the phone so tightly that my fingers turned white. She didn't know. No one knew. And while I was silent, Zach was the hero and I was nothing. I didn't sleep that night. I lay there staring at the ceiling and trying to figure out why he did that. Zach has always been like this. As a child, he used to take my cars and brag about them to the neighborhood kids as if they were his. At school, he would retell my ideas in class and the teacher would give him A's. But this was different. It was not a toy, not a joke. It was my life, my work, my victory, which he appropriated like a cheap medal. I remembered how he would barge into family dinners, always with a new business idea that no one had ever heard of. He talked loudly, laughed even louder, and everyone, Aunt Karen, my parents, even distant aunts, looked at him as a future tycoon. I was Trevor, who's coding something out there. And now he stole my moment, and the world applauded him while I was drowning in my shadow. What do you think of what Zach did? Is it just envy or something more? Write in the comments. Have you ever encountered those who steal someone else's success? Share our story with your friends. I was thinking of writing to him, to call, arrange a showdown, but I knew Zach. He would have smiled his slippery smile, said, "Trav, are you just posting?" And everyone would have believed it. His charisma was like armor, nothing penetrated. No, words won't work. I had to do something that he couldn't drown out with his charm. I opened my laptop and started collecting evidence. Screenshots of correspondence with the client, drafts of the contract, the history of changes in the cloud, the timestamp of my post. I wrote a new post. Every word was like a blow. This post was stolen. You saw him 2 days ago on the page of the person you consider successful. But here's the truth. It's mine. Not every like is true. Sometimes you need to dig deeper. I attached screenshots, photos, everything that proved that the contract was mine. I didn't ask for likes, I didn't ask for reposts. I just clicked publish and closed my laptop, feeling adrenaline pumping in my chest, as if I had challenged not only Zach, but the whole world. By morning, my post had exploded. Friends reposted it, freelance publications picked it up, someone wrote, "Trevor, this is not just a post, it's a fight for the truth." By evening, local media made a note. A freelancer has exposed the theft of his success on Instagram. I read the headlines, sitting at the kitchen table, and felt not triumph, but a strange relief, as if I had thrown off a stone that I had been dragging for years. But then Laura, the host of the Behind the Scenes Stories podcast, called. "Trevor, your story is what people need," she said, her voice warm but with a spark. "Come to us." I agreed, although my throat was constricted with fear. For the first time, I wasn't a shadow. It was the first time I was a voice. How do you like Trevor's decision to go all in? Was it worth bringing the conflict to the public? Or was it better to resolve everything quietly? Write in the comments. What would you do? Support our podcast to hear more of these stories. Zach was not silent. A couple of hours after my post, he posted a story. "Toxic people always drag you down for their moment of fame." I looked at his words superimposed on a blurry photo, obviously stolen from the stock, and grinned. He didn't name me, but I knew it was about me. But it was too late. My post has gathered hundreds of comments. "Zach, give back someone else's." "Trevor, you're doing great." "Did you brazenly steal it?" Someone made a meme where Zach is depicted as a raven dragging away a sparkle. Someone wrote to his future employer, and I heard that he started asking questions. The family exploded. Aunt Karen deleted dozens of comments under Zach's post, but they reappeared like weeds. Amy, his sister, wrote to me, "Trevor, you've gone too far. It's just social media. Why are you doing this?" I watched her words, feeling laughter and rage fighting inside. Just social media? It was my life that he stole like a cheap souvenir. My mom called in the evening. She always avoided quarrels, but her voice was trembling. "Trevor, you're right, but maybe you shouldn't have been so public?" Karen is beside herself, and Zach is silent. I press my lips together, feeling the old reflex. To keep quiet so as not to upset, trying to get the better of me. "Mom, he stole my work," I said. "I will not apologize for the truth." She paused, and then added softly, "I'm proud of you, but be careful." I nodded, even though she couldn't see. Caution has kept me in the shadows all my life. Now I wanted the light, even if it was blinding. What do you think about the family's reaction? Is Trevor's mom protecting him, or is she afraid of conflict? Write in the comments. Have you ever encountered such diplomacy in the family? Check out our merch inspired by real stories. My post exposing Zach didn't just break out. It became a fire that I could neither put out nor control. By the morning after the post, my phone had turned into chaos. Notifications were pouring in like bullets, messages from friends, acquaintances and strangers flooded instant messengers. Calls did not stop. Freelance publications picked up my story. One guy made a meme. A cat steals a sausage, and the caption reads, "Zach, when he sees someone else's success." I couldn't help but chuckle as I looked at him. But the laughter quickly faded away. Local media released a note. A freelancer has exposed the theft of his Instagram success. I read the headline sitting at the kitchen table, and I felt not triumphant, but strangely tired, as if I was fighting a shadow that turned out to be heavier than I thought. But then Laura, the host of the Behind the Scenes Stories podcast, called. "Trevor, your story is a fire," she said, her voice warm but with a spark, like someone who knows how to ignite a crowd. "Come to us." My voice faltered when I agreed, but inside I felt the shadow that I had been all my life begin to melt away. For the first time, the world was looking at me instead of Zach. Friends, do you think Trevor did the right thing by making the conflict public? Or was it worth dealing with Zach in person? Write in the comments, what would you choose in his place? Subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any new stories. Zach wasn't going to give up. A couple of hours after my post, he posted a story. "Toxic people always want your fame to cover their emptiness." I looked at his words superimposed on a blurry photo, obviously downloaded from stocks, and rolled my eyes. He didn't name me, but I knew it was about me. Only his armor, The charisma that had always saved him began to crack. My post has gathered hundreds of comments. Zach, give back someone else's. Trevor, you're a beast. Is that really stolen? Someone dug up his old posts where he boasted about projects that existed only in his fantasies. Someone posted a screenshot of how Zach liked my original post the day before he stole it. Boss-level arrogance. One guy wrote, and I felt a smile twitch at the corners of my lips. But the smile faded quickly when I received a message from Aunt Karen. Trevor, you're a disgrace to the family. Zach was just inspired by your success. You could have talked to him instead of making this mess. I clutched the phone, feeling her words burn my fingers. Inspired? He stole my life, my work, my truth, and I'm a villain? How do you like Aunt Karen's reaction? Is she protecting Zach out of love or out of fear of losing face? Write in the comments. Have you ever encountered such blind support in your family? Check out our merch inspired by real stories. I didn't answer Karen. Instead, I scrolled through the comments under my post where people were taking Zach apart. Someone made a thread comparing his posts to the empty promises of Infosegons. Someone wrote to his future employer, and I heard that he started asking questions that made Zach feel hot. The family exploded like a powder keg. Aunt Karen deleted dozens of comments under Zach's post, but they reappeared like weeds after rain. His sister Amy texted me, Trevor, you're overreacting. It's just Instagram. Why are you doing this? I looked at her message, feeling rage mixed with bitter laughter. Just Instagram? It was my victory, which he took as a cheap trophy. I texted her, Amy, this is not Instagram. This is my life. She didn't answer, but I knew she was fuming like her mother, like their entire clan, who were used to Zach being the golden boy and me being the background. My mom called in the evening, her voice was soft, almost pleading. Trevor, you're right, but maybe you shouldn't have been so public? Karen is furious, Zach is silent, the whole family is on their ears. I pressed my lips together, feeling the old instinct to keep quiet so as not to rock the boat trying to take over. Mom, he stole my work, I said, my voice firmer than I expected. I will not apologize for the truth. She stopped talking, her breathing was heavy, as if she was carrying our whole family on her shoulders. I'm proud of you, she finally said. But be careful. Karen won't forgive you. I nodded, even though she couldn't see. Caution is something that has kept me in the shadows all my life. Now I wanted the light, even if it burned. Friends, what do you think about the position of Trevor's mom? Does she support him or is she afraid of a family split? Write in the comments, how would you react to her words? Support our podcast so that we can share such stories. The podcast Stories from Behind the Scenes was my first step into this world. I was sitting in the studio opposite Laura, whose voice was like warm coffee with a slight bitterness. She began with a question that struck like lightning. Trevor, why didn't you just text Zach? Why did you choose the public path? I froze, staring at the microphone, which seemed like a judge ready to pronounce a verdict. Because he wouldn't have heard, I said, my voice quieter than I wanted it to be. Zach lives by likes, not by the truth. I wanted the truth to be louder than his show. Laura nodded, her eyes sparkling with curiosity, like a hunter scenting prey. And how did you feel when your post went viral? I thought about it, turning over the words like stones in my pocket. I'm not happy, I replied. More like relief. It's like I finally said, this is mine. She smiled and I felt the tension in my chest release. It was the first time I spoke, and it wasn't Zach or his fake fans who listened to me, but the people who saw me. The podcast recording went viral faster than my post. People shared it, wrote, Trevor is an example of how to fight for your own. Zach is anyone who steals someone else's light. I was reading these words sitting on the couch, and I felt the shadow that I was dissolving under their gaze. But the family wouldn't let up. Aunt Karen posted a Facebook post full of passive aggression. Some people think that public shaming makes them better. But family is about love, not likes. I grinned at her words. Love? She defended Zach because he was her ticket to the world of successful parents. Her pride, which she had been polishing for years. The comments under her post did everything for me. Karen, your son stole someone else's work. Trevor was just telling the truth. She deleted the post a day later. But the screenshots were already floating around the web like trophies. How do you like Aunt Karen's post? Do you think she's protecting Zach out of love or pride? Write in the comments. How would you respond to her words? Share our story with your friends. Zach finally spoke. He sent me a message on Messenger. His words were like a cheap script from a soap opera. Trevor, you got it all wrong. I was just inspired by your post. I didn't think you'd make such a big deal. I was looking at the screen, feeling laughter and rage fighting inside. Inspired? Did he copy my photo, my success, and call it inspiration? I wrote, Zach, really not an inspiration. It is mine. He didn't respond, but a day later he posted a new post. A quote about forgiveness and the way of the warrior, superimposed on a photo of the sunset sky. I rolled my eyes. Let him write. Let him pretend. The main thing is that he knew that I was no longer silent. Amy, Zach's sister, continued to bombard me with messages. You ruined his reputation. Satisfied. I didn't answer, but her words burned like coals. Ruined it? He ruined his own reputation when he decided that someone else's was his trophy. But I felt a pang of guilt, an old reflex that whispered, You've gone too far. I drove him away, reminding myself why I did it. I didn't want fame. I wanted to be seen, not as a shadow, not as a guy with a laptop, but as a man who had built something of his own. I wanted the truth to be louder than his lies. My mom came to me a couple of days later. She brought an apple pie, her way of saying, I'm on your side, but I don't want to fight. We were sitting in the kitchen and she said, Trevor, I know Zach was wrong, but family is difficult. Karen won't forgive you. I looked at her, feeling old wounds opening up. Mom, should I forgive him? For what? She sighed, her fingers fiddling with the edge of the tablecloth, as if she was trying to hold on to a world that was bursting at the seams. I just don't want you to be alone, she said softly. I smiled, though it was a bitter smile. I'm not alone. I have the truth. She nodded, and for the first time I saw in her eyes not only concern, but also a spark of respect, as if she saw me for the first time and not a shadow. Friends, what do you think about Trevor's conversation with his mom? Was she able to support him, or were her words an attempt to keep the peace? Write in the comments, how would you react to her position? Check out our merch inspired by real stories. The podcast brought me not only listeners, but also doors that I was previously afraid to open. They began to invite me to events, write to my personal account, ask for advice, and offer cooperation. I received an email from a company that wanted to sponsor my blog about freelancing. Trevor, your story is about honesty, they wrote, and I felt something snap inside me. I was no longer the one who codes in the corner. I became the one who says, this is mine. And the world listened. People shared my podcast, wrote, Trevor, you've shown how to fight for your own. Your story is a lesson for everyone. I read their words, and the shadow that I was disappeared under their light. But the family left scars. Aunt Karen didn't write anymore, but I knew she blamed me for everything. Amy apologized a month later, writing, Trevor, I was wrong, but Zach really broke down. I replied, Amy, he broke down when he decided that someone else's was his. She didn't answer, and I wasn't waiting. Zach has created a new account, and his posts are now full of quotes about second chances and powers of the spirit. I don't follow him, but sometimes I see his stories through mutual acquaintances. He's still smiling that same slippery smile, but there are fewer likes. His armor is cracked, and he knows I saw it. Now I'm sitting at my laptop, drinking coffee and writing a new post. Not about Zach, not about the truth, but about how to build my own, even when the world is looking the other way. Jacob, my friend who reposted my revealing post, wrote, Trevor, you're not just a freelancer anymore. You are the voice. I smiled, feeling the shadow that I was disappearing. The main thing is that I am no longer a background character. I am the one who speaks and the world listens. Zach wanted to steal my story, but it burned him more than he could have imagined. Truth is like fire. It burns, but it also lights the way. Friends, how do you like the ending? Do you think Trevor did the right thing by leaving Zach with his new account? Or should you give him a second chance? Write in the comments, what would you do? Thank you for being with us, and see you to new stories.